Hello everyone and welcome to another very nice game from round 4 of the 2019 GRENKE Chess Classic. It's Paco Vallejo versus Viswanathan Anand. It's really an exciting game, a lot of attacking going on, a lot of defending going on, and we do have some nice footage from the GRENKE Chess Classic video team. And I've cleared my RAM cache before recording this video, so I do hope everything will be in order. Let's check it out. We do have nice footage of Anand here. So hopefully it will not lag, and it's not lagging. I'm very happy about this. So that's the solution to my problem. Just clear that cache before recording. There you have it, very nicely done. And also we have a nice footage of Paco. There you have it, pondering on the position. Just not getting too excited. Even though if you look at his face here, and then consider about what this game will be like, it's nowhere near as exciting as the game is. So his game is definitely, his face is not a valid showing of the game quality. Not quality, but you know what I mean. So without further ado, let's check it out. Paco has the white pieces and he opens with e4. Anand replies with c6. We have the Caro-Kann, knight to c3 and d5 now. Very principled. Knight to f3, bishop to g4 by Anand, going for this pin right away. h3, asking do you want to move back with the bishop or do you want to trade? Anand decides to trade. This is all very standard, even though it gives up the bishop pair very early. And e6. So you've got rid of your light square bishop. So now you can close your pawns on light squares. This is a very solid structure, and your dark square bishop can be used to maneuver in between the light square pawns as you please. g3. We have knight to f6 by Anand, and now a3. And here there are a couple of games in the database. Bishop to e7 was played here, pawn captures on e4 was played here, knight bd7 was played here, knight captures on e4 was played here, but bishop to c5, the move Anand plays is a new move in the position, which is quite rare for a Caro-Kann to have a new position on move 7. So what do you do here? Here, okay, you have to ask yourself, can I go e5? It's grabbing more space, but after knight to d7, it will be somewhat difficult to defend this pawn. You can't go d4 because the bishop is now controlling d4, and you'll just have to go back with the queen, either queen h5 to defend the pawn, and after your opponent kicks the queen back with g6, you're going to have to go to e2, and you haven't really achieved all that much. So after bishop to c5, Paco just plays d3, strengthening the e4 pawn, and now Anand castles. We have bishop to g2, Paco also prepares the castle, knight b to d7, and now we do have castles. And b5, Anand grabs more space on the queen side. And here, queen to d1. Going back with the queen, as you do want to push f4. First you have to go king h1 or king h2 to push f4. But here Anand doesn't allow it. For the moment, Anand keeps the king where he is. So even if you push go king h1, Anand is just gonna grab the f2 pawn. So first you have to defend it. We have queen to e2, now preparing king h1 to push f4, and Anand takes this opportunity to further expand on the queen side. We have a5, and now king to h1. f4 is ready to be played, but Anand still doesn't allow it. We have d4. Pushing the knight back to b1, going to the starting square, although there is an interesting move that doesn't require the knight to move back, e5. But here, after all the captures, let's say captures, and captures, now you have to react to this as the rook is not defended. You can't go pawn captures here. You would have to capture it, and now after knight captures on f6, black ends up being up a pawn. And while you can mess up the king's pawn structure here, it's very unlikely that you will be able to use this for your attack, as both of the kings are castled kingside. You can do some maneuvering with the queen here, but unless you can get some nice rook lifts in, it's really not happening. So after d4, Paco just goes back. We have knight to b1, and now e5 by Anand doesn't allow e5 by white. We have knight to d2, still waiting with this f4 idea. And once again, I'm sorry for this. Sometimes you will see arrows before I even make them. It's a new glitch in the interface, and sometimes I remember to fix it because if I don't, when I prepare a game, I have to go over the game one more time to get rid of all the arrows, and sometimes I forget. So sorry about that. Bishop to d6, gaining further control of the f4 square, hoping to prevent it, but Paco just pushes it. We have f4. And here, you don't want to capture. If captures, you're just, in trouble. Now, white can really start the attack. He can go rook g1, get the bishop out of the way, maybe bring the queen into the game, and not good for black. So here, after f4, just queen to c7 by Anand. Gaining further control of the f4 square, and then now f5. Here Paco closes the position. He wants to go g5, g4 and g5. And now Anand's queen and bishop aren't really doing all that much. They're pretty much shooting at that pawn on e5. Now knight to b6 by Anand. Knight now takes control of the c4 square. He wants to push c5, c4, and well, hopefully survive the attack on the king side and transfer the game over to the queen side. We have g4 by Paco as planned, and Anand simply continues to play on the queen side, c5. And here, the best idea for white would most likely be g5, just starting the attack right away. But after knight to d7, queen to h5, just g6 would be fine. Queen to h6, and now just rook f to c8. And here you don't have any problems. It is an uncomfortable position for black, but black is holding this. You don't have to be afraid of anything like this. Just bishop f8 kicks the queen back, so everything is perfectly fine. So this is one option for Paco to go for, but he decides to go for a different line. Knight to f3 first, and now just c4 by Anand. Still continuing the game like nothing is happening on the king side. Bishop to g5, now hoping to capture here and only then push g5. Anand doesn't allow it. He goes knight f to d7, and now comes f6. Here Paco offers a pawn to Anand, but Anand isn't interested in opening up any files, the f file and also his g file, so he just pushes the g pawn, g6. And now, yes, it could be a bit dangerous if you can get something like queen f2, queen h4, queen h6, and queen g7 in, but that's a lot of moves, and Anand also has something to say about it. So here we have bishop to h6, now forcing the rook to move, which isn't all that impressive, as one thing Anand wants to do is get rid of this rook from f8. So rook f to c8, and now he opens up the f8 square for his bishop. And now comes knight to g5. Queen to d2 was also a possibility here, but then after knight captures on f6, you have to give up this pawn. White can play knight captures on d4 here, because now you open up the attack from the rook to the knight, so you wouldn't be able to capture the f6 pawn. So this would perhaps be an improvement on Paco's idea. Paco went knight to g5, and now you really are in a very dangerous position. Here, if Anand plays something like c3, then white gets a lot of time and his attack will be successful. Let's say you go b captures pawn, or queen captures even. Now you get queen to f2, and now queen to h4 is a huge problem for black, because now after bishop to f8 you don't have time. Queen h4, and now there's the threat of capturing here, queen h6 and queen g7 checkmate, but also if you just capture, then the h7 pawn is weak, so you can't protect against both of them. Let's say queen c5, you want queen to be able to capture here, just bishop captures on f8 is sufficient, because now you're attacking the queen and also threatening to capture on h7. So if captures, just queen captures with checkmate, and if you don't play something like this, still white will just capture, bringing the queen to h6 and deliver checkmate. So it's not possible to go for this with black. Anand has to be very careful after knight to g5, and he finds the best idea. Bishop to f8 right away, and now white's attack is happening too slow. Here, bishop captures on f8 was played, and now just knight captures, and now the knight is guarding the h7 pawn, so the queen coming to h4 will not be all that scary for the moment, but the queen has to get there. We have queen e1, now with ideas of queen h4 to h6, but just knight b to d7. And here we have a4. You might also try queen to h4 right away, but just rook here, and now there's a double attack against the f6 pawn. Queen to h6 will be too slow, as you're just going to pick up the pawn, and there's no attack here. So after knight b d7, we have a4. We have pawn captures, rook captures, and now comes c captures on d3. C captures on d3, and now h6. Anand kicks back the knight, so there are no more dangers of getting checkmated here. Knight back to f3, and now comes knight to e6. The knight is no longer needed on f8, as there is no pawn on h7. We have queen to h4, going after the pawn. Now comes king to h7, defending the pawn, and now g5. And here, Anand, of course, pushes h5. You don't want to allow any captures on h6. Again, we get this very interesting position where all of Anand's pieces is on the queen side. From the beginning of this game, Anand's been playing on the queen side, and Anand said that this game is about the queen side. But Paco claims that this game is about the king side. And now, if Paco can get rid of this knight, go bishop f3, capture this pawn on h5, we could indeed have a mating attack here. But how do you do this? The problem is, if you go knight d2, then queen to c2 attacks the rook and the knight here. And you're not in time. If bishop f3, just queen captures, bishop captures on h5, and now just rook h8 is perfectly fine to prevent any attack incoming. Bishop g4 check, you could go king to g8, and now the queen just has to go back. You can go queen captures on g5. You're down a piece. You don't have the attack. Everything is fine for for black. So after this h5 move, you first have to go back. Even though you don't want to waste time, this is one of those examples where you have to waste time to save time. So rook a to a1, and now queen to c2. Of course, you don't want to allow the knight to retreat for the bishop to come to f3. And now rook to f2, attacking the queen. And Anand calculates precisely. There is time to grab the pawn. And now, again, if you go knight d2, you're not in time. Just queen e3, and if bishop f3, queen captures on g5, there's no attack happening here. So, after queen captures on d3, we have bishop to f1, remaneuvering the bishop while attacking the queen, so that's saving time. Queen to b3, and now comes knight to d2, preparing bishop here and captures on h5. Again, the arrows trick me. Queen to b4, now with ideas that if needed the queen can go back, but also just keeping an eye on that knight. But Paco tries it anyway. We have bishop to e2, and here Anand has to decide what to do. Does he go for the knight? Is bishop captures on h5 a threat, or does he have to go back with queen to f8? So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the correct idea for Anand here. I'll give you a couple of seconds while I have a nice sip of my water. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent calculator. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, queen captures on d2 is the correct move. Because after bishop captures on h5, which happened in the game, Anand played queen captures on g5, and now Paco played bishop captures on g6 with a double check from the queen and the bishop. So now the only move is king captures here. If you go back, then you are getting checkmated. Of course, that Anand did not go for that. Anand played king captures here, and now comes rook to g2. So Paco finally traps Anand's queen, but the problem is he lost too much material while going about it. So queen captures rook, king captures queen, and now rook to h8, not allowing any tricky ideas. The rook is now activated. Queen g3 check, and now king captures on f6. We have rook to f1 check. Anand brings, Paco brings a rook into the attack, but king to e7. We have queen to a3 check, and now knight d to c5, just blocking that check. Rook to c1, attacking the pinned piece, but now king to d6. The king is an active player in this, so sort of endgame. And b4. Pawn captures, queen captures, and now just rook to b8, not allowing any sneaky checks from Paco. You have to go back now with the queen. Queen to c4, and here Anand just played king to e7, and it was in this position that Paco Vallejo resigned the game. He resigned, although you might think, why did he resign? There's still much to be said about this game. I mean, the queen and rook on one side, two knights, two rooks on the other side, both kings, just running up and down the board. But there really isn't. There's no move that white can make that would actually be a useful move. You can see that this rook is coming here, this rook is coming here, this knight is coming here. And white has no moves. Let's say you go something like rook to c2, prevent rook b2, then rook to b3 is coming, just taking care of the h-pawn. There's nothing white can do about it. You can just play a useless move. Then you can just capture the pawn, rook captures here. You can just play another move, knight captures here. This knight controls all of the squares where check can even be delivered, so rook controls b4, you can't give any checks. And after, let's say, queen f1, you can go knight to g5, bring another piece into the attack, rook e2, just rook to g3 check, now you have to block, and now knight f3 simply picks up the queen. after the king has no squares. After captures, you are down a rook and a knight. You are getting checkmated very quickly. So, although it seems like a very complicated position, it's really not, and both of them know it. So, in this position, Paco just resigned the game. And an excellent victory for Viswanathan Anand, who joins Magnus Carlsen in the lead. As you all enjoy standings so much, I've prepared the standings. Nope, not that. I've prepared the standings after round 4, so there you have it. Carlsen and Anand sharing first place with 3 points. Then with 2.5, Peter Svidler, Fabiano Caruana, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and Levon Aronian. With 2 points, Arkady Naidic, and with 1 point, Paco Vallejo and Georg Mayer. And with, well, our star, Vincent Keimer, still in last place with 0 points, but the tournament is still young. There, a lot can happen. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Paco most likely didn't. I would like to thank David Compton, Scott Rayleigh, Sean Stablevsky, Mark Gronsma, and Arunashish Som for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully today with another game from the GRENKE Chess Classic, but I don't know when I will return from Zagreb, as I'm really looking forward to catching the Avengers Endgame today. But yeah, that's it. Thank you all, and I will see you soon. Have an excellent rest of your day.